Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Jaspreet and I'm here with another tutorial. Today we'll be making and glazing these sweet little doily bowls. I think they're just so delicious. I mean, look at the glazes inside. This is such a fun project and I happen to make a whole bunch of these and I'm kind of, finding it difficult to stop. But this is a really simple, relatively simple, easy project to make and doesn't take too long. Now, if you're making these for your own use, you can use them as a jewelry dish, for your rings and earrings. You can use them as little dip dishes. They can be used on your cheese platters with, honey or jam, or maybe even for holding nuts. I think they can be used in so many different ways. And even if you're not using them for anything else, I think just, they look too pretty to not make. That's my excuse for making them. But also, if you're somebody who sells their work, these kind of pieces tend to do well at in-person events and markets because they're relatively lower price point and they look really pretty. So it's almost like a no-brainer for people to just pick up something small and beautiful and useful that they can use in their homes. And today I'll show you how I make these and how I glaze these as well. So it will be the entire tutorial. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's just get started. So here's my slab of clay. This started with a 1/4 of an inch thickness, and this is actually recycled clay, and it is really soft. But I did thin it down a little bit more because you're making really small pieces. I mean, this is the size that you're making, and I didn't want it to be too chunky, too thick. So I just thin it down a little bit by just lifting the slab and slamming it, in a slanting direction, and that stretches the slab and thins it down. So that's what I've already done. And then I've compressed it, gone over it with a rib, just, compressing. If I see any air bubbles, I take care of those. But here's my slab prep already done. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add my texture before I start cutting out the circles. So for texture, I have a couple of different options. I think I'm going to go with this one. All right, I have this large doily thing. I think it's used for tables, decorating tables and things like that. It is very old school, but I love it. So I'm going to be using this one, and I'm not going to use the entire thing. I'm going to just place it somewhat like this because I like certain areas where there's no texture. Like, yeah, for example, this one, if you see, this doesn't have any texture here. So, I mean, there's a little bit of, plain surface and variation. Obviously, can't do that for all the pieces, but, some I like that resting space, resting spot where there's no texture. So I'm going to be leaving a little bit of that edge so we get a few pieces with a little bit of, texture-free area, but the rest will all have the texture. So I've just put my dolly on here, laid it down here, and then using my pony roller, I'm going to go over the clay surface. So I make sure that my doily gets embedded in the clay. Now it's time for the reveal, which is my favorite part. So that's our doily texture. That's beautiful. I love it. Okay, and now I'm going to first, before I start cutting out the circles, I'm going to release the clay from the board. And I just left one side because I've already kind of thinned down my clay and it is recycled clay and it is really soft. Some of it is going to tear, I have a feeling, but I'm just pulling it out from all sides, making sure it's not sticking to the board, because when I cut out my circles, I want to be able to pull them out from the board easily. Once I've released my clay from the board, then I'm going to go in with a cookie cutter. You can, of course, take a template, a circle template, and cut down your circles. All right, the cookie cutter I'm using is about 4.5 inches in diameter, and all of this will be linked. Whatever I can find on Amazon, I'll link it for you. But even if you can't, if you don't have a cookie cutter, you can use it, the lid of a little jar or something, and use that to cut out your circles. So I'll be using this and then putting the circles onto a small board on the side. This is what I meant. I like this little bit of, texture-free area on certain pieces. Personal preference, you don't have to do it. It's just a very personal thing. Okay, I'm just gonna go around cutting out the circles. I'm going to first pull out these. So now it's easy to just pick them up and place them onto a smaller board. If I hadn't released the clay, then I would have had to struggle with, pulling each of these out individually. That would have distorted the shape even more. So it's good to just release the clay first and then cut out your templates. Now all these scraps, what I'm going to do is I'll just keep some because I need to cut out my signature. Okay, so I need 11 little circles for my signature. So what I'm going to do is I have this smaller cookie cutter. Now this is my little stamp which says JK. So I use this in places where I can't add my signature, like the entire thing, ceramics by Jazz. I will just add this little maker's mark. For example, right here, you can see I just add this little circle with my maker's mark and it stays on the side here because this is too small an area to put my entire stamp and I don't want to get rid of the texture here. I like the texture and that's the whole point because of the way I'm going to glaze it. I want it to have texture. So I'm going to add a little additional stamp thing onto these bowls. So I'm going to cut out smaller circles. And then all of this will again be recycled. Now this clay is really soft, but still I am going to just dunk it in water. I have a bucket of water on the side. I'll just dunk this in water and then place it in a plastic bag and recycle it, veg it, and use it again to make more of these bowls. Now to make these bowls, what I usually use are these little bisque molds that I have made from cups and other bowls that I have in my house. These are all made with clay. I just press the clay in the form and then I bisque fire it. So I use this side. So this side has to be nice and plain. Inside you can see is kind of messy and that's okay because this is the side that I wanted, the shape that I wanted. Similarly for this one, I use it again as a press mold or I can lay the clay on top and press it to give it this shape. And here's another one. So I have a bunch of these in a lot of different sizes. So I'll be using these for my bowls, mostly this one. You can also use some plaster molds. So this is a plaster mold that I made again from another bowl. Here's another one. Now these are obviously much bigger. If I have a bigger slab, I can use this to make little dishes and bowls for those. Not for this size, this is too small for this, but you can make your own molds, bisque and plaster for pottery. I think they really help to speed up the process and it makes life so much easier. So what I'm going to do is bring in another little workboard here and my binding wheel placed on top and we start working with our slab. So the first thing I'm going to do is, now this is a really fine stoneware, smooth stoneware clay. And for this, I am going to spend some time on the edges. Now for the edges, if you see the texture goes all the way to the edge. So what will happen is if I do not compress and smoothen out the edges, it can crack in certain areas where the texture is deeper. So what I like to do is, so obviously one is I like the look of a nice smooth rim. For example, here if you see I have smoothened out the entire rim and I like the look of that. The texture is not coming all the way to the rim. It's a personal choice, but I also feel that doing this will just compress the rim a little bit more, keep it more in the round and prevent the whole issue with cracking. So what I'll do is with a damp sponge, just dampen your fingers and then I'm going to go over the edge here and smoothen out and compress the edge right here. Now that does get rid of the texture and if it's intentional, I like that look and it compresses my rim. So I like to do it. So I do this on this side, then I'm going to lift it, turn it over, bring in my damp sponge. Not drippy, just damp, and go over the edge on the inside as well. Okay, so once I do that, now the next step is going to be bringing in my mold. Like I said, I'll be using this guy. I'm going to place this here and try and center it. To see if it's centered, what I usually do is get down to the table level and then make sure that it's kind of, equidistant from both these sides and both these sides. I'll just take, I usually just eyeball it, don't really measure it. Spend a couple of seconds here, not too much time, because like I said, it's a very organic form. This is not like a very, it is round, but in my mind, this is still a more organic form. Like the rim is a little bit uneven. It's not like a straight rim here. And I like that. And I want that for these kind of dishes particularly. So it's intentional. If I want it to be more rounder, I can spend more time and do that, but that's not what I'm going for. So once I'm happy and I feel this is centered, I'm going to just lift this and turn this over, flip it over, okay, and here, and then lightly press. Like I said, my clay is really soft, so it's easy for me to just kind of go around the mold and press it in. Okay, right now I'm lightly pressing from the top to make sure it kind of conforms to the shape of this mold. And while it's here in this form, I am going to add my maker's mark. Now this is a smaller circle that we cut out, and here's my stamp. I'll just take this, just put it here, okay, and just press. That gives it that stamp. And then I'm going to bring in my cookie cutter again, because as I press the stamp in, the clay stretched. I'm going to bring this in and press again and make it smaller and neater, you know, like this. I'll just go over the sides a little bit, pressing them in tiny bit. Okay, now this is going to go onto the pot. For that, I'm going to be taking this wire tip tool, right, for scoring. Now for me, like I said, I'm using really soft clay, so I'm going to just dip this in water and then come and score the back of the stamp here. Okay, and then find a spot on my pot where I want to add this. Just go over, see where you like it. I like it here. Again, scoring here, I just dip my wire tool in water, score it. If you're somebody who uses slip in your work, please continue doing that if that's how you've worked and it works for you. My clay is okay. It doesn't need that extra slipping, especially because I work with really soft slabs mostly. And also I have multiple clays in my studio. It's kind of difficult to keep track of, different slips and things. So I just place it there, and then I smooth out the rim with a silicone tip tool, and then just pressing to make sure it's nicely attached. Once that is done, then I bring my board here, slide it off, and there you have your little bowl with the stamp on the side. Now this is done, and I will let it sit for a little bit so it sets up. And once it's set up a little bit, after that I will still go in and do the cleanup. But this has had some time to set up. This is another one that I made some time back. I'm going to take my damp sponge and just go over if there are any kind of marks. I mean, it is uneven, but I'm just smoothing out the edge so that whenever somebody touches, it's a nice smooth edge. Even though it is uneven, it is smooth. Yeah, so unevenness is intentional for the rustic look that I want, but I'm also making sure that no clay crumbs, there's no sharpness to this rim. So that's all I'm doing here. It is still uneven. You can see it still has that variation in the rim, but it still looks finished, nice and polished. It's an intentional rustic look that I'm going for. Okay, so I'll do this, and after this, these will all be covered with plastic and they will dry slowly. I know there are really small pieces, and I have done this in the past where I've let them, dry out in the open, thinking, oh, they're small pieces, they won't warp. But that's a struggle with me. For me, is my smaller pieces warp more than my larger pieces, because my larger pieces I am really careful. But these smaller ones, they kind of get taken for granted and end up warping. So I'm going to cover it with plastic and let it dry slowly. Won't take too long, maybe a couple of days, for 3, 4, 5 days maximum. And then I let them dry outside without any plastic till they are bone dry, and then they go into the bisque firing. All right, so here are my pieces after bisque firing, and you can see the texture. This is plain on the inside. And we're going to now start glazing them again with some drippy glazes and things like that. We'll try a few different glazes, and this time I am recording this on camera, so hopefully I'll remember what I did, and you'll also get a chance to see what they look like. All right, so I'm just taking my bisque pieces and with the damp sponge going over them, make sure that there's no dust, and also just checking to see if there are any sharp edges, unevenness. Now my plan is, for the back, which has a doily texture, I'm going to add a little bit of an underglaze, wipe it back, and then I'm not adding any more glaze to it. It is going to be raw clay body with the underglaze. On the inside, we'll do all the soft white with different colors. Pulled out my glazes. So I'm just dividing this into 3 different sections. Okay, so these are my mostly the greens on this side. These are blues and a couple of pinks. Now I'm going to first start with the back, and I'm going to go in with this aqua underglaze from Speedball. I am going to thin it down a little bit because I want it to flow easily into the recessed areas. Okay, and I'm using this bamboo brush, so Chinese or Japanese calligraphy brushes. They're nice and absorbent and hold a lot of glaze. And this one is almost, it's kind of dying out. Need to pick a few more, but I'm going to use this. First, I'm going to mix my glaze with the water inside nicely. Now, I don't really measure how much water I add, just enough so that, it's runny enough to settle into these recessed areas. And at the same time, not too thin so you don't see any of the color pay off at all. So I don't want that as well. That's why. And whenever I'm going back in the pot to load up my brush, I'll just mix it because the underglaze tends to just settle at the base. So just do that, and then I'm going to go over my initial as well. All right, now before I head on to the blue one, I'm going to just take a damp sponge and clean off the base here. So what this does is it gets rid of the underglaze on the raised surfaces, while the recessed areas, they hold on to the underglaze. So you get a nice color there. Now for the blue, I'm going to be using this turquoise underglaze. This is also from Speedball. Now I'm going to quickly just wipe the backs off as we did for the other ones. All right, I'm going to move on to my pinks. Now for my pink, I have Speedball pink underglaze, but it's a bit too bright for me. I mean, after firing, it does get really bright, and I don't want it to be that bright. Also, I have this pink glaze that I mixed up that I had bought, I think, in Spain a couple of years back. And for whatever reason, I haven't got to use it much. So what I'm thinking is I'll probably use this glaze on the base and then clean it off. Use it like an underglaze, basically, so I can remember what this looks like. I know this is also a brighter kind of pink. So I'm just mixing the glaze quickly. I hope this works. I don't know. I have no idea what this is going to look like. I just know it's not a very flowy, melty glaze, so it's okay if I use it for the base. So you can actually use, any glaze if you want to for adding this color to your base. The only thing you have to remember is that it should not be a melty glaze. Like, don't add soft red, even when you're wiping most of it off. Soft red is a melty glaze. Don't add soft white and soft blue and soft aqua or any of those melty glazes, because even when you wipe them off from the raised areas, they're still likely to melt and drip from those, small recessed textured areas. So, I mean, just to be on the safer side. All right, so once that's done, I'm going to take my damp sponge and start cleaning up the base. You can see it's a little bit more tricky to remove these. Now, though I know this is not a drippy glaze, but for these two, I'm going to place them on a cookie just to make sure that I don't mess up my kiln shelf. Okay. Making sure I'm taking care of, getting rid of all the glaze on the raised surface here. Then just clean off the edge, the rim a little bit, and we're good. Okay, same for this one. All right, time to add the glazes now. For that, I'm going to be using my soft white. I'm going to mix it first with my number 8, sorry, bamboo brush from Mako. I think Amako also has a similar brush. Now the plan is to add 1 coat of soft white, 2 coats of all the different glazes on the rims, dripping from the rims, and then another coat of soft white on top. And we're going to start with the first dish. So I have thinned down my soft white. I like it better this way, works for me. And you can see one brush load is enough. It's like, for what we're doing, this is more than enough. It's a nice even coverage. Okay, I'm going to do this for all of my pieces first, because by the time I finish doing this, my first piece would have, dried. We can go in with the second round. So this one coat is done. We move this out and we start with the individual glazes. For this, I'm going to again move on to my trusted bamboo brush, mix in the glaze well. Again, I'm going to load up my brush, okay, and then just go over the edges here. And I'm not being very precise, if you can see. This is just a quick dab, right? Now, because this is your second layer, because it's already a layer of soft white underneath, it's going to take some time to dry completely. And we can't add the second layer on, so I'm going to just let this sit on the side. Okay, now that most of these have dried out, I'm going to take my soft white, again the same thing, mixing the glaze with a brush load. So I'm just going to do 1 coat and that's done. Just going to go around doing exactly the same thing for all the pieces. That's why we let the glazes dry before we add this last final coat. Alright, so these are all done. They will all be fired to cone 5, 6, 1200 degrees Celsius in my kiln. And once they're all done, I'll show you what they look like. Alright, so here are all our pieces after the glaze firing. This is one which I made some time back. This is close to bone dry, not yet there, but I'm just going to show you first the difference in size. So you'll see that the clay does shrink. This is cone 5, 6. So that's the first thing. Now let's get on to all the different colors that we mixed here. There were some surprises. So let's start here. These are all the greens, the blue, and the 2 pinks that we did. So starting here, this is Spectrum Celadon. The greenish glaze, it has a blue tint on the inside and it has this, weird effect. I am really surprised with this result because Celadon is supposed to be a really soft green, blue-green glaze. Wait, let me just show you what it looks like. This is Celadon by itself. This is Celadon under soft white. And I can see that Celadon on the sides here, on the rim here, just underneath here. So I know this is Celadon. I've got it right. It's just that with soft white, where there is a little bit of soft white on top, you can see that the color is changing. There's a little bit of pink happening. There's blue happening. There's not much melting that's happening, which is disappointing. But this is not my favorite combination. I'm kind of disappointed, but it's okay. But the outside, this looks quite nice. See, this is Celadon, so I know this is Celadon. Anyways, the outside, this is Speedball underglaze called Aqua. So that looks nice, but this is disappointing, not happening again. Okay, so reject. This one is interesting. I like what's happening in here, the meltiness. But honestly, I have better combinations with melty. Now, what is this? It is tourmaline from Amico. You can see what that looks like. There is a little bit of green. There's a little bit of, purplish bluish thing happening here. It's a beautiful glaze. Like what that's doing. At least it's melting. And on the rim, you can see there's a little bit more variation. This is what it looks like on the back. Nice. I'm happy with this. On to the third one. Guess which one this is. Here's textured turquoise. Oh my god, that's so pretty. I love it. I love how much it's melted, and I love this light greenish. That's my favorite in the greens so far. Guess which one this is. Oh my god, I was so surprised. This is textured kiwi. Oh my god, look at that. That's a horrible glaze. I hate it. This is kind of blah. I mean, it's not blah, but I just thought it was like lighter green with soft white. It's interesting, to be honest. It has some variation here. It's nice. It's just that it's not what I expected. I expected it to be different. Anyway, so that's textured kiwi with soft white. Clearly, these two are my favorites. So I'm going to keep them. This is both Amico glazes with soft white, right? Now on to the blues. The blues I like in general, but there's a surprise. Okay, let's start with the, not a surprise. This is soft blue, right? Yeah, the soft blue looks just so perfect. And here's the back. Now for the next one, when I make, I'm going to go in with a lighter blue at the back, like something which kind of goes more with this rather than this, turquoise bluey thing. I'll go with a lighter blue underglaze, and that's what it looks like. I think it's beautiful the way it breaks on the edge. That's stunning. And also the whole melty. It's such a soft, it's actually, now I understand why it's called soft blue. It's so beautiful. All right, so that's soft blue. Guess which one this is. So pretty. This is blue rutile. Oh my god, with soft white. I love this. There's so much happening. Like there's a little bit of variation on the rim, then this beautiful effect. Imagine this on the outside of a mug or even inside a bigger bowl. That's so beautiful. And then there's a little bit of pink and purplish bluish happening in the center, a little bit of greenish blue here. Oh, this is so pretty. A little bit of brown here. My god, that's stunning. That is really stunning. Again, I'm going to change up the back, go with slightly different blue. That's it. Guess which one this is. It's a surprise. It's sky. I am so surprised. How can this be sky? Sky is supposed to be a really light glaze. So I'm surprised at the effect, but it's beautiful. Unexpected, just so unexpected. I mean, how is this happening here? I don't know if it's soft blue that's doing it, but how can it turn light? How can a soft white glaze turn a light blue glaze into a dark blue glaze? I have no idea. I am not an expert on glaze chemistry. I don't know how it works, but this is beautiful, just unexpected. My brain, I'm not able to wrap around this, that it's actually sky, but it is. Oh my god, this is beautiful. Whatever's happening here, this is quite nice. Even this, I'm sure it's soft white that's doing all of this, but it's still surprising. Now when I'm putting them together, maybe something happened there. But yeah, this is sky. Surprise, but it's beautiful. So again, not my favorite. I'm keeping my favorites on this side and not so favorites on that side. All right, on to the pinks. This is Chun Plum from Amico. Okay, let me show you the back, right? So if you remember, I had used a pink glaze for this. Oh, the glaze was too dark. I don't like it. It's looking more red than pink. So for next time, not happening. And here's what it looks like on the inside. I think that's beautiful. Look at that on the edge and this whole waterfall thing that's happening. That's beautiful. I like it. That's Chun Plum with soft white. So one coat of soft white, 2 coats of Chun Plum on the rim, on the edges, and then one more coat of soft white on top, right? You see a little bit of pink, you see a lot of purple. Yeah, my god, that's nice. Okay, happy with this. And here's the last one. This is textured burgundy. Okay, and that is stunning. I love it. Let me show you the two together. This looks more white and this has more color in it. Similar colors, to be honest. I mean, the purples are quite similar, but this has obviously more of it. Let me show you what it looks like. That's what the back looks like. Again, I'm going to change up the backs for these. I'm going to go with a more pinkish purplish underglaze. I'm yet to figure what. I'm going to be testing some to see what goes with what. But this is what this looks like. So here are my favorites, the six of my favorite ones. And this is also like, okay, okay. But if I have to pick an absolute favorite, like complete favorite, I think I go with this one, the teal blue one. This one is my absolute favorite. I love all that's happening in here. And then this one, I think. And then this one. And then this one, this one, this one. So that was the video for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a blast making these. I've made a whole bunch more of these, and I'm going to try all my glazes with this combination and see how that looks. This time I will be more careful about recording the glazes that I'm using, and also I will try and put them in some kind of a document so that I have it for my reference, because I'm going to replicate them onto bigger bowls, so they can be used as your little test bowls as well. So that's all I have for you this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, share. It really helps me continue doing what I'm doing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.